Let's say our Lasuk B'divrei Torah blessing together. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Tiftanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu La'asuk B'divrei Torah. Praise to you, Lord of God, ruler of the universe, who's made us holy with your commandments and committed us to busy ourselves with the words of Torah. Rabbi Chen, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's nice to see all of you here tonight. I'll give you a little bit about my background. And what's so nice is that Rabbi Goldhamer's widow's here, Joan Golder, who and her husband helped found the seminary, our current Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi John O'Rang, one of our new students, Cone, it's good to see you, and Noah, it's just beautiful, who's studied with me, and even Rabbi Edelberg, our publicity marketing person's father. Becky's dad's here. So I was for many years the assistant associate rabbi at Congregation B'nai Shalom, which was the first temple for the deaf, founded in the United States by Rabbi Dr. Douglas Goldhamer of blessed memory. Rabbi Goldhamer passed around, we're going to be celebrating his yahrzeit February 2nd. It's been 2 years. I was blessed in that I started out as a teacher. I was a daycare administrator. I did early childhood education. And when I was 40 years old, I developed breast cancer for the first time. And basically complications that happened afterwards led them for eliminating my job with Skokie Park District as a daycare administrator, and led me to a new life and a new career and a new temple at Congregation B'nai Shalom, and led me to Rabbi Goldhamer, who was one of the souls, those souls that save a generation. I was told that the first day I stepped into B'nai Shalom, and spending all those years with Rabbi, I can assure you it is exactly who it was. The deaf in Judaism, the Cheresh, is considered one group of 3 people, 3 classifications that are exempt from doing the mitzvot. They don't have to follow. The 3 are someone who is beyond the age majority, 13 a boy, 12 a girl, someone who is considered intellectually disabled, so isn't able to understand what goes on. And the third classification is someone who is deaf. Now, why the deaf were considered part of all of this is that we speak about the deaf all the way back to biblical times. If you're reading and you're sitting in shul on Yom Kippur, we read Kiddushim, our holiness code, and part of Kiddushim is don't curse the deaf. We have always acknowledged that there is deafness, there's crazy midrashim about different stories that go on, but back in the day, they used to think that they could not, if you can't communicate, there's no communication, then how can you expect someone to follow the commandments? How can you ask them to pray to God when there's no way of explaining what a prayer is? How can you make them part of a community when you have no way of communicating with them? And Rabbi Goldhamer was a young student at Hebrew Union College, and there were a group of 11, 12 families who had deafness within their families back over 50 years ago, and they wanted a congregation. They wanted to share Judaism with their families. And so Rabbi Goldhammer came to Chicago. He was originally from Canada, and Congregation B'nai Shalom was founded. B'nai is spelled B-E-N-E because at the time, Rabbi felt that it was easier for the deaf to understand that spelling. And after Rabbi was serving for many years, what ended up happening was people would contact, I have a deaf son, I have a deaf grandchild. We want to get married. And Rabbi realized that there was a need for rabbis besides him who could work with the deaf, who could perform, life cycle events, who could do funerals, who could make sure that Judaism was accessible to everyone. And that's when Hebrew Seminary was founded. We have ordained 16 rabbis in the years since our inception. We have all different types of students. Hebrew Seminary is very, very accessible. I served as our religious school director for many years. We have had b'nai mitzvahs, we've had weddings, we've had baby namings, and the deaf have been integrated into our society. Culturally, things change. Cochlear implants, texting. There's an app that's on your phone now, which will take what somebody's saying and turn it into words so that the deaf can follow along. Sign language is beautiful, but when David contacted me and he said, "Oh, many of our congregants, many of the people are older. Maybe that'd be great because you get older, you start losing your hearing a little." The thing that sign language is, it's fine if you learn sign language, but you have to know somebody else who understands sign language to communicate with them. Sign language is different in whatever country. Israeli Sign Language is very different from ASL, American Sign Language. There are different types. There's no one type of sign language. There's signed English, which has and but and bah. There is traditional ASL with its own syntax and its own way, but sign language is a way of communicating, a way of praying to God. I know at the beginning you were talking about how cute, different congregants, grandchildren, children. One of the most wonderful things about sign language that I found is it's a wonderful way for children to learn, especially kids with ADHD, because it gives them something to do with their hands. Some of my best signers were kids who had, a lot of their own little IEPs, or they had different things and they were able to understand what they were. All of our B'nai Mitzvah did their Torah portion in Hebrew and then in ASL. And it is a wonderful way. It's a beautiful way. It's a way of communicating with God you can, communicate with God, not just with your words, but with your hands. And it also is inclusive, and it is a way of sharing Judaism with people who for many years, I met someone whose parents were deaf, and the deaf weren't allowed to join congregations before B'nai Shalom. And parents knew that on the high holidays, they should be in shul, and they would drive their car and they would park out front because they weren't welcome inside of the synagogue, but they knew that's where they needed to be on the high holidays. The deaf, there's not one kind of deafness. There's not one type where you can have what type of hearing, whether you can have an implants, whether you can have hearing aids in different times. I was very blessed in that from the time I came to B'nai Shalom, and I'd always wanted to learn how to sign. There had been a deaf program in my high school. That's what I wanted to go into in college. And I came to B'nai Shalom and I wrote a curriculum and I stayed and I started teaching the gong class. And my first assistant was a beautiful 16-year-old deaf young woman who is going to be ordained as our first para rabbi this coming May. She's been part of my life, part of our synagogue, part of the seminary for many, many years. And it's a blessing. So that's basically the background I can give you. And I wanted to know if you had questions for me. Maybe I'd teach you a little how to sign a prayer or two. And prayers are going to be signed differently. I know Noah down there and I have often had talks about how the different ways you can communicate and how you can sign to one another and how, whether you do, Israel or Israel, there's different signs and it's how you wish to sign. There's no one correct way. As long as you can communicate, that's the most important thing.
Okay, so we're open for questions. Go ahead and just jump in.
Rabbi, you talked about the seminary, and I guess my question is, what makes your curriculum, or what is unique about the curriculum other than, or I guess I'm trying to figure out how to say this.
Why is Hebrew Seminary different from other schools? How's that?
Yes, kind of like the Passover Seder, right?
You know what? Okay, so Hebrew Seminary has a couple of different things. First of all, we, I think, are more open, more welcoming of different people coming into it. We don't discriminate on, who you're married to, who, background. We also, we've had deaf students, had hearing students. We have had all different kinds. Hebrew Seminary's background is also that Rabbi Goldhammer, besides being one of the first people to bring in deafness. So if you're taking a class, you don't have to, but you can learn how to sign Torah instead of learning how to sing it. You can still learn trope if you want to do trope, but you can't. We teach prayers, liturgy in ASL. We also have a very spiritual background. Rabbi Goldhammer was a Kabbalistic scholar and has written 2 books on healing and Kabbalah. So, for example, our next semester starting in February, I'm teaching Rabbi Goldhammer's first book, This is for Everyone, which has different healing meditations within it and different approaches to healing and praying as if your prayers have been answered, and communicating with God. What else is different about the seminary? It is a very broad spectrum. It has midrash, it has Talmud, it has all the things you might find, but it also has different teachers with different viewpoints, and all of that's also brought in. We also have started, which is something that's new to the seminary. And as I said, we're going to be ordaining our first pair of rabbi, which is a 2-year program where people learn to, for example, synagogues in small communities where they don't have a rabbi, they can't, that you can have a para-rabbi degree and learn how to lead services, learn how to be involved, learn how to do life cycle events, and not that it's not the traditional 5-year rabbinic program, which we also have. So those are a lot of the ways that Hebrew Seminary, and our students range in age from their 20s to their 50s, 60s. So we have a wide group of students.
Thank you.
And it's all over the United States. Our students go everywhere from the East Coast, from New York to California and everywhere in between, which is also pretty wonderful at this point.
You have some questions in the chat, David. Maybe you could read those to her.
I'm going to let you be the reader, Dave.
All right, let me look at the chat and see what questions there are. Hold on. It is a long chat. Okay. Okay, so there was a question about a story that Moshe had deafness.
With Moshe deaf, I know there's 2 different philosophies. I think that Moshe was more, heavy of tongue, that it was communication, listening. We have the whole little story, the midrash about the coals being placed in the gold, and he chooses the coals, but an angel changes them. Was Moshe hard of hearing? I'm not really buying into it. I think that he might have had some communication problems, but there's different arguments to be made for the story.
Great, thank you. There was another question about whether the seminary teaches the art of Quranomy, of signing the trope for how the words of Torah are sung.
We have had that class in the past. Didn't really work out so well, especially for our deaf students who are taking it. But the ancient temple was so huge and so immense that they said that they had different people standing, and they would sign. And so that even back in temple days, so that the message would get down through, the blocks and blocks and blocks of crowd. So yes, I know about it, but we do how we teach. So we teach trope, or you teach about, or we teach signing. So I've been doing a class where we've been taking different Torah portions and, signing it. For example, Bereshit. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was unformed and void. and the Spirit of God gently hugged the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, and it was good. And it was evening, and it was morning, day one. And that's what, but it can be translated different ways. Just like I have many different Humashim, and every one of them has different interpretations and different ways of translating the English. We say Torah medaber b'lashon adam. The Torah speaks in the language of man, and we change, and things change. And for me, when I'm dealing with signing a prayer or signing a Torah portion, it's more about the feeling that goes behind it, the reason, the intentionality, the kavanah. That's what makes it so beautiful. All right. What's the most important prayer we say in Judaism? Anybody?
Shema.
The Shema.
Shema.
The Shema.
The Shema. What does Shema mean? You were
Here.
little in Sunday school. What did they teach you?
Here.
Here.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is right. But it was sort of rude when we were first translating the prayer. So instead of hear, we translate, pay attention, Israel. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. Praise be name, whose glorious kingdom is forever and ever. It's a beautiful way of connecting, of sharing, of talking to God with your hands as well as with your heart. And I know Noah asked something. David,
Yeah.
can you see?
Let's see. So Noah posted, I remember, Rabbi Chen, I remember talking with you about Connection 26. Can you touch on that?
I don't remember, Noah. I'm sorry. It's been a while. Give me more of the background. Noah is unbelievable. Noah works with their partner, and his learning to be an interpreter and studying, and just unbelievable. So who hit it? So I know what Noah's talking about. So
okay,
there is,
go ahead.
so deafness is not the same now as deafness was 50, 70 years ago. There is a gene that causes deafness. We had a family that belonged to our congregation. All three of the daughters had a Jewish genetic gene which caused deafness and then blindness also, which is just unbelievable. Deafness back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s was caused before there were antibiotics. Scarlet fever was one of the leading causes. 60s, Marlee Matlin's generation, the rubella, German measles outbreak, caused deafness. Nowadays, if it's not something genetic, spinal meningitis still is a contributing factor. What has changed everything is back even 20 years ago, you had a child, that child maybe had a hearing problem, but now all babies, have hearing tests before they leave the hospital. COVID is causing a lot of hearing issues, tinnitus. My sister-in-law just ended up losing her hearing following COVID, and there's nothing they can do. Their deafness can be caused. We had a deaf young man that could pass a hearing test, but his brain lacked the ability to, he couldn't process. It was a processing thing. So the sound was there, but no idea what that is. Cochlear implants changed things when they came into being, because now people, adults, most children have cochlear implants placed before, as babies now. So it's very different in that deaf culture has changed unbelievably. So, and I think, as I said, things change over time. And yeah, Leland had a question? I see.
Yep, Leah, or
Leah?
not sure how to pronounce your name.
Leah?
Hi, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you. Rabbi, I had a question that I think I probably asked you on Facebook, but I'm going to ask it right now. I lost my hearing a couple of years ago due to COVID, and I'm now on the cochlear implant, and I'm really curious, how do people, see, right now I'm trying to relearn how to chant Haftarah. And I'm just wondering, how are there deaf people out there in my situation who are relearning how to chant Haftarah or even the Torah? I don't mean like in sign language, but I mean like, usually the voices. Is this something that your seminary has addressed before or is thinking of addressing?
This is a new phenomenon in that it's happening, this is post-COVID. As I said, teaching somebody sign language is very different than working with someone with a cochlear implant and relearning. Our seminary is going to focus much more on issues of making Torah accessible, making, Jewish learning accessible. But this is a new thing unto itself that's happening. And as we, time goes on, and you opted for a cochlear implant and now relearning it, but did anybody even suggest at the time that you learn sign language?
I actually do know some sign language, but I felt with my musical background, just to be meaningful, to just kind of bounce back and just regain my ability to sing Haftarah. Everything sounds like a submarine. People talk like they sound like they're underwater. I'm working with a Haftarah teacher right now, and she says I'm now off key, so she's having me learn how to go down, like up and down in the pitch. And that's about the best I could do. I do know how to read Hebrew out loud. That helps. But I don't know of anybody else in my situation who's trying to get back the ability to chant Haftarah. It's off key, but is doable.
It's just, you're the first one that I've heard, and as Noah said, it's embracing who you are now. And it doesn't matter, well, to me, it doesn't matter if you're off key, it's still you're communicating with God and you're sharing, and that's what is important. And Noah said, embracing who you are now. Things change, our situations change, our lives change, you know. Within moments, you know, illnesses, loss, new places, new experiences. And it's just a matter of being open to letting God in and embracing what you have. And to me, I'm going to share with you my favorite of all of the children that I've been a mitzvah over so many years, 20 years. My favorite name mitzvah was a young girl named Sarah. Sarah's parents came to us and said, no other religious school will accept her. Will you accept her? She has cerebral palsy and she is in a wheelchair. And does that mean that she can't be? We said, no, of course not. And Sarah's gift, Sarah was a gift to our religious school. Sarah wasn't going to be able to chant, or vision problems caused other things that happened with her, so that it was hard to even follow. But Sarah got up the day of her bat mitzvah, and a ramp, and she was in the wheelchair. And part of what happened is she lost her voice. They don't know if it was the nerves having something to do with the CP, and she read Braishi. She sounded like that. And when she finished, she looked out at everyone there and said, okay, you want me to do it again? But the look on her face and the gift she was to the rest of the students, her classmates, she was invited to every single bar and bat mitzvah in that school. They would help get her drinks and help make sure that she had oneg with everybody else. And they made sure that those children learned more about what it means to be a mensch and how to include and how to be a person. Then it was the most wonderful and beautiful experience. And no one treated her any different than anyone else within that class. So hardest part for us was she had a big startle reflex, and Rabbi Goldhammer was, and he would be beginning, Shema Yisrael, and poor Sarah would jump a lot from Rabbi. But Judaism, and that was the beauty of B'nai Shalom and the seminary, is that Judaism needs to be. It's not just for, the hearing. It's for everyone, and everyone has an equal part and an equal role and can play an equal and find beauty and find meaning in learning how to sign, or learning how to communicate with others in other ways, or knowing that just because you learn differently or you look differently, that does not mean that you are not welcome and that you're not a valued member of the community. Because that's what Judaism is about. We're about community. We are about welcoming. You know, what is the commandment written the most in the Torah? You shall be kind to the strangers because you were strangers in a strange land. And that's what Judaism and what the seminary is to me, finding a way to make everyone feel that they have a part of this world and the world to come, and that they are not children of a lesser God. But we all. And that's what we need to remember. You know, there's so much surus and mishigas going in and out in this world, and so much hate and judging and the other, and that no one seems to realize, you know, Kabbalistically, we're all connected. We all come from, you know, the same soul, and we each connect to each other from with each other. And that when we hurt others, we hurt ourselves, but that we are, you know, we are one. It's not just that, hear, O Israel, you know, pay attention, the Lord is one. It's that we're all one, you know, one with one another, and that we're united. David, any more questions?
Rabbi, aren't we commanded by the Torah to reach out for those who have a challenge and to bring them close to us? Isn't that what we're taught?
Well, that's what I said. If you want to be holy, don't curse the deaf. Don't put a stumbling block in, you know, front of a blind person. Our holiness code, you know, Kiddushim is not so much about a relationship with God. It's about a relationship with one another, about treating each other fairly, about honoring each other, about not cheating and not lying and not embarrassing or criticizing somebody in public. It's about that if we want to be, you know, Martin, God spoke to Moses saying, I, the Lord, are God, holy. You shall be holy because I, the Lord, your God, holy. But how you be holy is by knowing that you are the same, and that how you treat others is what Judaism is all about, and what is the most important thing to God, how we care for one another. You know, there's beautiful, beautiful Talmudic passage that said, our lives are like, it's like a tree. There's a fruit tree. And any good deed you do, that piece of fruit goes on, you get credit for any other piece of fruit that comes from it, any other thing that grows from your good deed, passing it on, that will bring you, you know, credit in this world and the world to come. But if you do something bad, you get over it, let it go, you make amends, you say not to do better, not to do it again, and you get to go on. I mean, Judaism, we get to reset our karma every Yom Kippur. We get to, you know, promise God that we're going to be better, that we're going to try, that we're going to be kind and do, and that we get to do and be and just strive to be better. And that's what this life is about. And excluding people who are deaf, and it's so, and people don't even think. I mean, I remember I was leaving somebody in charge of the office, and I had to go do something one day, and they're like, well, what happens if one of, you know, the deaf kids come and they need something, and what do I do? You know, how am I going to communicate? And I looked and I said, really, people know how to read and write. they can find a way of communicating. We have been learning for, you know, thousands and thousands of years how to communicate with one another. And that's what's important, is finding ways, finding the commonality, and that's what Hebrew Seminary is we find a way to reach different learners who learn in different ways and teach them what they need so that they can go out and help teach others. Our seminary graduates have worked in hospitals, have done, you know, have been chaplains, have been hillels, have been congregational pulpit rabbis, have, you know, created treatment centers, have done so many different things. And there's not just one type of rabbi or one type of Judaism, one kind of community you can find to serve and to share what, you know, you have. We believe there's a divine spark inside of each and every one of us, and that we all part of God, and God lives inside of us all, and it's just activating that spark. And the more you learn, and the more you do, and the more you just be a mensch, that's, if everybody was a mensch, just think what this world would be like today.
I saw something on a car the other day, Rabbi. It said, "Be kind." It was a big thing that was on the back of someone's car. I thought, what a wonderful thing for all of us to know and do. That
was what Rabbi Goldhammer believed above everything else. Be kind, be kind, be kind. That is the greatest trait, what makes us human and what connects us. And a word of kindness, a look, including someone, just trying, a smile can make all the difference in the world. I know I had a 5-year-old. 5-year-olds, as you said, they can teach you computers better than anybody else. You know, much better. You know, I just hand the iPhone to my grandkids. But you were having Sunday school, and it's like, and you always, you know, try and challenge. Where do you find God? And I had a beautiful little 5-year-old. Rabbi, no, you don't have to find God. God's in heaven. You taught us God's right here inside of us. And if a 5-year-old can remember that, I think the rest of us can also. Dove, did you want to ask something? I love the name.
My name is Bear, and I'm learning ASL, but I'm slow, so I don't know how to sign my whole question. So I'm a transgender individual, and when I was going through my conversion process, I spoke to my rabbi at length about my conflict between changing my body to become who I feel I am, and the concept of being created B'Tselem Elohim, right? And so my way of resolving that is knowing that I am part of God's image. That's really easy for me as an able-bodied person to say. So my question, and you touched on this a little, but you inspired more questioning, because I'm a Jew. So that's easy for me to say because I'm able-bodied. Yeah, I was made in the image of God. But in counseling someone who is maybe otherly abled, has that come up? Like, you are the image of God and God created you and God doesn't make mistakes, but the person might have a lot of anger with how they were created or their challenges. How do you approach that feeling? And I'm sorry if I maybe misspoke or anything. I can't,
No,
you know, I don't know how to
mean,
speak for people with like that are otherly abled. So I hope I said it right. And thanks for calling at me.
Look, if you read the Torah and you study Torah, there's two separate creation stories. Two separate. There's the first one in B'Tselem Elohim Ora Otam. God created the first living creature. It's Otam, it's them. God created them. Adam and Eve, that comes after they get moved over. They go by the garden. They go. So Eve is the only afterthought. It's really made after Shabbat, you know. And Eve, if you want to talk about it, Eve is not Asa. She is not made. She is not Bara. She is Banat. Eve is built. So that's a whole other subject. But just because someone is made different and has different challenges doesn't mean that they are not just equal to God, that they are not part of God. Everyone has to find their own way, their own journey, their own path, how to get to God, how you believe. I worked as a chaplain for many, many years. I worked with senior communities, and I had a woman, Catholic woman, who, God forbid, should even be in a room with a Jew. And as her daughter said, you made her different because she came to embrace and enjoy my visits. And she said to me, you know what, honey? There are many different paths up to the mountain, many different mountaintops, but not one of them is any closer to God than any of the others. Wisdom from 5-year-olds and wisdom from 95-year-olds. We are all made in God's image with, you know, handicapable. It doesn't matter. We all have beauty within us. We all have strength within us. We all have gifts within us. And it's finding and sharing those gifts with others that makes life worth living. It's not easy. Look, I'm Bear, you need to come to the seminary. I'm telling you, really. Look, I'll be honest, you know, my life's changed many ways. I've had breast cancer 3 times. I currently have metastatic, but it hasn't changed who I am. It's just made me go a little different on how I do things. And if I need it, and anybody who's getting older, you understand, if you need to sit down when you're walking too much, you sit down. That's the lesson I learned. We take it easy. We do what we can. We do not let what is happening limit us in what we can achieve. And we each have so much to share and inspire and to teach and to do. And not one person is any more beloved in the eyes of God than any other. Really. And some of the people that I've learned some of the most unbelievable lessons from are people that you would not expect. And the other thing is, you know, I have 2 favorite expressions from Torah. And the first one is from creation stories, and it's Lo tov la'adam levado, e'eselo ezer kenegdo. It's not good for man to be alone. I'm going to make for him a helpmeet. And that is the most, this crazy Michigan world, post-pandemic, pandemic, it has taught us anything is what loneliness and isolation do to all of us and to our souls. Our souls are meant to connect with others, to find and create community. That's why we are here. God didn't make us to be alone. God meant for us to be part of one another's lives. And when you are, and when you can, get out of your own head, I'm telling you, wow, it is amazing, the blessings that just come right down upon you. And little chance encounters that happen can change your life if you only open your mind and are willing to try and experience and let others in. And you will find that that's what, that and ice cream. What else do you need in life?
All right, so recognizing the time, I want to thank Rabbi Chen for teaching all of us this evening. I will turn off the recording.